everybody, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Amy.
And we are going to be joined by Amy this week and next week as the host. Allie's taking a couple weeks off. Amy.
Oh my gosh, already. Starts.
Amy, it's always a pleasure. And it's even more of a pleasure, in my opinion, when it falls on an international break, because I do very much enjoy talking England's Lionesses with you.
I'm sure you enjoy talking about the Lionesses after the US have won and the Lionesses have lost. I think that much more. And also vice versa, when the US have lost and the Lionesses have won, I really enjoy talking.
Yeah, that's about how it works. I usually don't want to if we've lost, and vice versa. We should note that, of course, this is dropping Wednesday. There are 2 games that the US played. There are 2 games that England played, but both of those were happening Tuesday night. Obviously, because of logistics, we couldn't cover the Tuesday night games and release this podcast first thing Wednesday morning. So we are mainly going to be talking about the first games of the US and of England. But of course, we are going to be just talking about the larger picture of both of these teams, which is what I really find the most interesting. And the Emma Hayes era has kicked off, and we're going to kick it off with that. But before we do, a couple of things that I think flew under the radar. We had 2 international retirements this past international break, including Lydia Williams, Matilda's goalkeeper, played her final international home game at 36 years old this past weekend. She played in the Matilda's game versus China. It was a beautiful sight. Before the game, she was honored with a traditional Aboriginal cloak. She got a massive standing ovation by 75,000 at Stadium Australia, which is where, of course, the World Cup final was just played. Just beautiful sights. And the legend herself, Lika Martins, at just 31 years old, which is younger than both of us, Amy, has decided that she is retiring from international play as well. She played her final home game for the Netherlands on May 31st and her final game as a whole for country on June 4th. Both of those were versus Finland. She will be missed. What a legend. She also got quite the send-off and very much deserved. All right, we're going to kick it off with the U.S. women's national team because I wrote the notes. This was a big moment. This was the beginning, the true beginning of the Emma Hayes era. And technically, you can say that it started a while ago because she was doing work behind the scenes. But this was the first time, the first camp, we saw Emma Hayes in the U.S. attire, on the training pitch, on the sideline. And what a sight it was. I think this is the most excited I've been to see a U.S. game in a very long time, Amy. How were you feeling as an England fan, I guess?
Well, I think the Emma Hayes era started a while ago, I'll be honest. I think to Chelsea's detriment in a lot of ways. It really impacted their season. And we could say it didn't, but it did. It was clear. It was so clear. So in that respect, yes, this was the official first game for Emma Hayes, but like we said, she has been working behind the scenes with Twyla, Kilgore. And I think what we saw of this team, which we'll discuss in depth, obviously, was it's going to take a little while for her to make an imprint, but there were some areas where we could really see the things that Emma Hayes wanted to do. And especially, I think, set pieces. We saw some well-worked set pieces and headers, particularly from Davidson. And that was evident of what her and her staff are trying to bring in here. She brought all of her staff from Chelsea with her, so she has people she trusts. And as an England fan and a fan of Emma Hayes, it was obviously a little bit weird to see her on the sidelines wearing US attire. It's going to take a little while for me to get used to that.
It's going to take a while for me to get used to that. I found it weird also, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, we've watched her in Chelsea Blue for so long, and also, she's commentated on a lot of England games and commentated with a lot of vigor and gusto and support for England. So it is quite weird to have her there on the sideline now, representing the US and trying to get them to win a big tournament again.
I will say, as a US women's national team fan, like you said, she, we've seen her in the WSL. We know she's English. We've seen her commentating on a lot of England games, on a lot of Lioness games. And it was nice for me as a U.S. women's national team fan to hear her speak about the program in the way that she did. Not that I wasn't going to trust her. But it's nice to hear that it's in the hands of somebody who seems to have a really big grasp on how important the history of the program is to everybody, including current players. And hear her talk about how, she wells up hearing the players take so seriously what they've been passed down and that they need to have just as similar of an impact. And it's nice to hear her talk about it in that fashion. But we're not here to just talk about Emma Hayes, but obviously that is a lot of what is, I think, what needs to be discussed. First and foremost, before we get into the game, I have to comment. It's Pride Month. The Pride jerseys were amazing. And the U.S. in this friendly were playing in Colorado of over 19,000 people. It's worth noting because it's just so wonderful to continue to see these big numbers turn out for friendlies.
I feel like the US used to sell out stadiums for friendlies, and the numbers have dwindled a little bit. There was a good audience there, but there's been years and years, I would say, at least a decade, maybe more, where US women's national team games would sell out, regardless of what the competition was, whether it's a friendly or, a major competition. And there may have been, well, I'm not saying people just walked away from the national team, but performances and the lack of major trophies recently perhaps have, caused fans to say, well, I'm not going to go to that game, or it's just a friendly, or, I'm not really interested until they become better, which, some fans will do that. We know that. They might not be hardcore football fans, but when you say that there was 19,000 people there, and then I look at the England game and there's 42,000 people. So it's disappointing, I would say. And
I will say, though, for the record, that was a sellout. It was a small stadium, but it was a sellout. Yeah.
It's a small stadium, but I did see a lot of empty seats there. Maybe that was just at the beginning of the game, but there was a lot of empty seats. And I think if you can fill a bigger stadium, why aren't you doing it in a bigger stadium? There are bigger stadia in Denver. They have the football stadium right there. So I don't know why you wouldn't use that. If you can get 40,000, why not get 40,000?
I agree with that. I completely agree with that. But I also think that if it wasn't a bigger stadium, there would have been a higher attendance. I don't think that number is indicative of fans not showing up just because that was the capacity, but we'll see. It'll continue. Obviously, there's 3 more games on U.S. soil before the U.S. go to the Olympics. That'll tell us a lot. Let's get into it. I mentioned the Pride jerseys. Those were amazing. We mentioned the attendance. We mentioned this was the first game of technically we'll call it the Emma Hayes on the sideline era. And we both alluded to some changes that I feel like we were already seeing. So let's just get into it. The first thing that I feel like is worth noting is that I think it's very clear that she wants a much more dynamic front 3. There's not going to be that tried and true number 9 and then your wingers who hang out wide, kind of playing like how Tobin Heath and Megan Rapinoe used to play, where they were the ones getting the crosses in. The crosses now, they're coming from the outside backs, and it's clear that Emma Hayes wants that front 3 to be more dynamic. I'm going to keep saying that word, but that's the word for it. And essentially interchange, more play off of each other, more play closer with each other, and have more ability to create opportunities for each other.
Well, I think we saw that with the first goal. It was very
absolutely.
Well. I think the Smith through ball for Swanson was delightful.
Gorgeous.
Just a nice reverse pass. Obviously, you only get that connection with somebody when you know where they're going to go. So they have to have been working on something like that in practice. And if they can get on that level with each other, that's going to be a scary partnership, because both of them are kind of similar in the way they play, I would say. So there's going to be give and take. There has to be some times where Sophia Smith is going to set up Swanson and Swanson is going to set up Smith. And then you also have a ton of other options, right? So you have Rodman. And she kind of likes to drift out to the right more and then put the ball in the box. But I think if you can get those 3 more dynamic and interchanging across the front line, like we saw with that first goal, it's going to be a scary proposition for the opposition, because this is the beginning of the Emma Hayes era, and let's take it with a pinch of salt right now, because it was against South Korea. This is not a great opposition, we'll say that. But for the movement, for the first goal, it looks promising. But can you make that happen against the bigger teams as well?
Yeah.
And then Jaden Shaw is obviously an outstanding talent, and I'd love to see her work into that front 3. She could be used as a sub, she can be used as a starter. She does have that ability. So it's a good problem for Emma Hayes to have. And how she solves it is something that she's good at, because she's done that at Chelsea a lot, where she's got a lot of good players and she's rotated them in and used them wisely. Now, different story at Chelsea. You're playing club football. International football comes along once in a while. It's not regular. So you don't have to rotate. But what you do is you have to get it right, because for major competitions, you have to get it right. So this is really interesting for Emma Hayes, because it's a really different style of coaching that she's going to have to, adapt. And I think that we might see some times where she finds it hard, but if she does get it right, it's going to be scary.
Yeah. I think that more problems for another coach is actually just a delight for Emma Hayes. I think for other coaches, they might look at this and think, oh, I'm worried I'm not going to get it right. Who gets the time? What if I make the wrong decision? And I think Emma Hayes just looks at it and sees more options. I think about how Jill Ellis was able to rotate Sam Mewis, Lindsay Horan, and Rose Hovell into 3 players into 2 different midfield positions in the 2019 World Cup based on their opponent, based on how she wanted to play tactically. And I kind of see Emma Hayes working very similarly with a Jayden Shaw, Katarina Macario, Sophia Smith, and just getting that rotation in. You have a Jayden Shaw who can play in the front line and has proven to be able to play that number 10 position. You have Katarina Macario, also versatile. There's so many versatile players. And I do think Emma Hayes just really licks her chops at that. And I can't wait. Obviously, Jayden Shaw, a little bit injured right now. We're not going to see her like we would have wanted to see her. But I'm so excited for when we do. And Sophia Smith at the number 9, we've seen her there before, but not in these tactics. And she was such a revelation at that position. And I feel similarly about Swanson, who we know her potential. We all have. We've seen what she could do. And the injury was just so unfortunate that she suffered, but she's back at it. And to see her just back in her form, but in these tactics, and we knew she was a dynamic player. But I do think that in that moment, I saw just how smart the runs that she makes really are. And that's what most impressed me about Mel Swanson.
Yeah, and I don't think we're anywhere near her best yet. She's, what, is she just over a year past the date where she...
Yeah.
So I think that we're still to see the best of her. And again, that's scary because she's very good as it is. And she's been setting the NWSL like this season already. So yeah, I think there's promising signs there. Again, it's so early. We can't really say that this is going to be successful. This may be successful against lesser teams, but let's see what it looks like against bigger teams, and then we can really make a judgment on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so early, and Emma Hayes basically says this in every single press conference, but it's so early, we can't judge anything. We can't judge personnel based on who she's playing. And also, quite frankly, what she's trying to say without saying it is you also can't judge how this is going based on the result in the Olympics either, because this is a very long road that they are now embarking on, and this is just the beginning. And I think it does bring up a lot of questions about Alex Morgan's future in this team. We can talk about that here if we want. I think that the biggest overarching takeaway for me is that this team seemed like there was a renewed spark, a renewed confidence, a renewed, we are the U.S. women's national team and we are going to be the best in the world swagger. And I just love that about it. I really do.
I also go back to the point that you made about Alex Morgan, because Emma Hayes does like a number 9. She likes a traditional number 9. She's got Sam Kerr, she's got Myra Ramirez, Chelsea, and I think that she can work Morgan into the systems and make it work. I don't think that this is the end for Alex Morgan. I'm not convinced it is.
I totally agree, especially based on obviously how much youth there is in that front line. You always need that veteran presence. Okay, we can't move on. We've obviously talked a lot about the forwards. We didn't get to see Crystal Dunn too much at the forward position. She wasn't in for that many minutes, but we did finally get to see Crystal Dunn at the forward position. Amy, I want to hear your thoughts. If you feel like even there was enough time to assess how Crystal Dunn played at the forward position.
First of all, I was surprised that Crystal Dunn got a call-up. She's not really been playing for Gotham as a starter regularly, and she hasn't found form in front of goal. So for me, it was a surprise. I do think that Emma Hayes has given everybody a chance. She wants
Yeah.
to see everybody get a look. So, all in all, I don't think it was like an amazing Crystal Dunn display. I think it'll come when she finds her footing at Gotham. I don't think she knows where she is at Gotham. Like, what's her position? What's her role? What's her best role for them? And I think that they're trying to figure that out too, with all of the players they brought in, and with Ella Stevens being such a success right now. Hard to see where Crystal Dunn fits. So I think she has to play regular club football, or she doesn't stand a chance of going to the Olympics, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, it made me just feel bad for her, where I was just like, you know, 4 years ago when she was at her peak form, that's when she deserved to have her shot in the forward line. And it's disappointing. I'm sure she's disappointed that when she's obviously not in her peak form, that's when she gets her shot. But obviously, we're speaking solely about the U.S. first game. We can't say what happened in the second game. So I don't know, maybe Crystal Dunn went off and scored a hat trick or something like that.
I mean, we can hope for the best for her, but I feel like it's a Rachel Daly situation. She could play a part maybe, but I still don't think she's going to go.
Yeah, those are the kind of hard decisions. I think that Emma Hayes is very, very obviously capable of making. This is a big moment in the U.S. women's national team journey. This is really what they call the changing of the guards. And this is the new era of the U.S. women's national team that perhaps it was ready to be ushered in under the Vlatko era, and it wasn't. And perhaps it just really wasn't ready to be ushered in. And now all of these players are at that moment, and it is time. And I guess along those lines, the final thing that we can talk about are those two center backs, Tierna Davidson and Naomi Girma, one of whom wore the armband for the first time. Naomi Girma, it was heartwarming to see that pass from Haran to Naomi Girma. I think I've said for ages that she is the future U.S. women's national team captain. And Emma Hayes tried really hard to say, don't read into this. I like to give young players their opportunity to wear the armband here and there. But I think it's very clear that Naomi Girma is taking on a more leading role on this team, obviously in the absence of Becky Sauerbrunn. And I was very happy to see that. And of course, the Tierna Davidson goals we must discuss.
Well, first of all, I was happy that Lindsay Haran was not the captain and the captain's armband was passed to somebody else.
I mean, she was until like the 80th minute, but yeah.
I'd rather her not be the captain of this team in all aspects. And that's just my personal opinion. I think she's too slow, slows the game down a lot. I just don't rate her. Probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm putting it out there. Tierna Davidson's goals were fantastic, and you could see that they worked on set pieces because they were very deliberate in what they were doing, and they worked. They worked, and she got 2 goals. I don't think she's scored for the national team.
She had 1 goal previous to this game.
I mean, it wasn't great. The second goal wasn't great goalkeeping. The keeper was in no man's land, not sure what she was doing, and it just made the header an easy finish. But you still have to get it on target, and you still have to be in the right position to score. So all credit to Davidson, and I'm really hopeful for her as a centre back. She obviously tore her ACL, and you see how long it takes to find your footing again after an ACL tear. And we'll talk a little bit more about Leah Williamson when we come to England, but it does genuinely take up to like 2 years for you to see this player become the player that they once were. And I think we're seeing that with Davidson. In Gotham too, she's been outstanding for us at the back. I really rated her, and she's the signing that everyone was like, oh, okay, we signed Tierna Davidson, but no, we signed Tierna Davidson, and that probably is the best signing so far, along with Ella Stevens. I'm not talking about Gotham a lot, but the only reason she's being able to be picked for the national team is because of her performances for Gotham, because she's been outstanding. And if she can forge a partnership with Girma that is solid, and they understand each other, and they can play off with each other, I think that solves a lot of problems for the US, because we saw that aging back line was not working with Sauerbrunn and Dolkemper and Gold Cup, where you lost to Mexico. So to have Girma back in the squad and Davidson fit fully now and at the peak of her game is great for you. It gives you that stability down the spine of the team. And obviously goals. If you can add goals as well, ideal centre back.
Who would have thought that targeting the tallest person on the field might pay off? I love the pairing of Davidson and Girma. I was hoping to see it. I suppose along those lines, I was also happy to see Sam Staub get her first cap. So well deserved. And we don't even have time to get into it right now, but we're talking a lot about Gotham signings. It needs to be noted, Rose Lavelle got some minutes at the end of the game. Somehow, Rose Lavelle seems to be a bubble player right now, where we actually don't know if she's going to make this 18-person squad. I thought she made a really great case for herself, doing what Rose Lavelle does best, dribbling at the back line, beating a couple players, creating space to lay a ball off and get a beautiful assist. I mean, she created that entire goal herself, and that's the most she can do right now. I think Rose Lavelle, a lot of the question marks are obviously around her health and less around her play, but also, frankly, around how she plays with the captain in Lindsey Horan.
She goes. She goes to the Olympics. If she's fit, she goes. There's no way you don't take her. She's a game changer. She can make things happen that other players can't. Like, Horan can't make that happen. Horan's going to sit there, try and feed passes through, try and get a header now and then, plod around the pitch. Whereas Lavelle is going to change the tempo and be incisive at the right moment. And I think you have to take Rose Lavelle.
Lindsey Horan is an 8 and Rose Lavelle is a 10, so I would love to say they're not competing with each other. I'll say, just because we're on the topic of Lindsey Horan, Emma Hayes was, she made some interesting comments just about Lindsey Horan as a captain, and she said that she likes the armband being on Lindsey Horan for the reason that she thinks that factually, Lindsey Horan has played her club football at the highest level for the longest period of time. And she says, really tactically in international football, you have to be ready to switch up your tactics on a game-to-game basis. And playing Champions League football is really the only experience that can give you that. In the NWSL, you're not changing your tactics all that much, versus in Champions League, you're playing PSG, who man-mark you on defense on Wednesday, and 7 days later, you're playing Barcelona, or a German team that play completely differently. And she likes that Lindsey Horan does bring that type of experience to the team. There's nothing to say about that. I just find that to be, I always find what Emma Hayes says as reasons interesting, and that's one of them.
Well, I think that is factual. She has been playing in Europe for a long time. She forgo college to play in Europe. So yeah. She does have I would say, a superior tactical knowledge of the game and how Emma Hayes probably wants to play the game, which I hope that the US can adopt, because we've seen such a stagnant style of football from the US that they need to change. They need to change. If you look at Spain and how they play football, the US and Spain are night and day different. Yeah. And I'm not saying they have to be Spain, but there has to be like some sort of blend of the two styles to make the US more successful.
I think that's what we're already seeing. I mean, right from the jump, I think I saw the US swing the ball around the back line more times than I'd seen them do in 4 or 5 years. It was exactly that. There was a change in pace. When they went quickly, instead of something that felt so one speed, one dimensional. It was more dynamic. And that's why I say, and I said, there's a renewed spark, a renewed confidence and swagger. And we'll leave it at that. Let's go around the world. Around the world, around the world. 2 Euros qualifying first, Norway and Italy drew both games with scorelines of 0-0 and 1-1. Austria and Iceland drew game 1 0-0, and Iceland took game 2 2-1. Sweden took down Ireland in both games 3-0 and 1-0. And finally, the Netherlands beat Finland 1-0 in game 1, and the two drew 1-1 in game 2. In friendlies news, Canada took on Mexico in 2 games, the first of which Canada won 2-0, and the second, which saw a 1-1 draw. Brazil took on Jamaica and beat Jamaica 4-0 in both games. Japan played New Zealand. Japan won both games with scorelines of 2-0 and 4-1. And finally, Australia and China faced off in 2 games. The first game saw a 1-1 draw, while game 2 belonged to the Matildas with a 2-0 win over China.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football, including the women's game. Want all the stats in one place instead of drowning in a mountain of tabs? Want to explore key matchups and the tactics from both teams? Total Football Analysis provides the stats and analysis to help you learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, Type WOSO10 to get a full year for just €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to totalfootballanalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
And finally, we are going to talk about the Lionesses who are in Euros qualifying. Arguably way more important than the games that the US just played. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about them second. This first game played in England, 42,561 people at St. James Park on a Friday evening to see the Lionesses lose 2-1 to France. Sorry, that probably stung how I just said it, but
so much like happiness in your voice.
I did not. Listen, I was not I was not happy to see it. In an England-France game, I am rooting for England. Let that be known. The final thing before we get into this that should be noted, Hervé Renard, I'll never be able to say that because I say French with a Spanish accent, will not be returning as the head coach of the France women's national team. Renard joined the team very recently. He'll coach them through the Olympics and then he will depart. His contract ends on August 31st, 2024, and he just chose that he didn't want to re-up it. We don't have any information about where he's going. There's been some news that Ivory Coast was trying to get him, but that didn't work. So we don't know where he's going, but obviously just more turnover at the head coach position for France, more instability.
The French always seem to be in the headlines for some reason that's not good. It's not usually to do with football. It's usually to do with the fact that the team's not getting on with the coach is making poor decisions, the players don't like the coach, there's fighting within the playing staff.
Right.
So I think this is pretty sad for France. They seem to, they were building something here and they looked like they could, after the Olympics, perhaps they could win the Olympics. I'm not saying they can't. I think that they have a great squad and obviously they're on home soil, so it bodes well for them. But for him to just leave without a sort of like an explanation as to why is strange. There hasn't been any talk of any wrongdoing or anything like that. Usually that would come out, but it does raise a lot of questions. And those players really needed the leadership that he was bringing. So I don't know who is going to take on that role. Sonia Bonpastor would be a good solution, but she's gone to Chelsea now, so that's obviously not going to happen. But we'll see in the coming weeks.
All right, so let's get into this game because I honestly think that this scoreline can be a little misleading. I thought England played a lot better than a 2-1 scoreline, which is saying something because up until now, I don't think that the performances have been strong, even if they've gotten the win, for example. But this time, I actually think it was a strong performance that the scoreline wasn't indicative of. But to start from the beginning, I guess chronologically in the game, I have to say there was a scary moment at the beginning. Mary Earps went down within the first 5 minutes. It's nothing serious, I don't think. Nothing's been confirmed, but it really did seem like it was just a pulled muscle and she'll be okay. Scary moment, though, is quite hectic for England in the first 5 minutes anyways, and then you add that into it, and it was just a lot. But to see Hannah Hampton come in, she came up huge in the first half with an incredible save. That was exciting. I was excited to see her. It was her 5th cap for the senior national team. Obviously, Mary Earps is the keeper, but when it's an injury that you're like, Mary Earps is going to be okay, it's kind of exciting to see Hannah Hampton come in and come up big like that.
Yeah, Mary Earps came out on social media and said it was just a minor hip injury and she's going to be fine. It didn't look like that when she was on the floor crying, but I think it was literally like 10 seconds into the game. But we haven't been able to say this for a long time, but England's goalkeepers are very strong. We have
so strong,
so much talent in the goalkeeper section. And
anybody in the world would be lucky to have any one of those 3 keepers as the starting goalkeeper.
Yes, and I love Mary Earps to bits, but Hannah Hampton, solid. So I'm fine with her being in goal. Distribution also on point. And then Kiara Keaton, same thing, like incredible shot stopper, not scared to distribute out of the back. All things we need to see from our goalkeepers. So not too worried about the goalkeeping situation at all. I think that will be fine, and that's great. And Hannah Hampton's going to get some exposure. The only thing is if she gets injured, then we're a little bit thin. We also have some really great talent in our under 21s, under 17s, under 19s. Our age groups are really, really doing well, which is great for the future. So we talked about the result It did flatter France, but I'm not worried about England, and I'll get into why I'm not worried about England. I mean, before we were concerned about the results and stuff and how we were playing, but this performance was a good performance. Put the result aside, it was a good performance. I'll say the first 20 minutes, we did struggle to find our footing a little bit. We had the Bright-Williamson partnership back for the first time in a very long time. Both of them have serious knee injuries. And like I just said, when someone goes through an ACL tear, it's going to take them at least 2 years to look similar to where they were. And Williamson is not there. She will be, but she's not. And she's not the player we saw in the Euros yet. And the same with Millie Bright. Millie Bright's older as well. So it's going to take her a little bit more time to get back into the group. She didn't really play for Chelsea at the end of the season that much. She was here and there appearances. She played in the final game of the season. So that was the little concern at the beginning of the game, was just how England were trying to work the ball out of the back and they were getting caught. They weren't able to get it out of the back. And that was mainly due to France pressing well. I thought Kenza Darley marked Walsh out of the game for the first 20 minutes, and we were trying to get the ball into her, but we couldn't. We couldn't figure it again. If Kira Walsh is marked, what are we doing? Who's the next option? And it has to be to Stanway, Hemp, Mead, and Russo. Those ones then have to get on the ball somehow, right? So we have to figure out how to get through the lines or even go into the channels and get the ball to them. And we couldn't figure that out for the first 20 minutes. And then we scored. We scored from a good wide play. Hemp gets the ball in. I thought Hemp was outstanding. I thought she had a great game. Russo had a good game, even though she didn't score. And then Mead was there, and what she does best, cool and calm, slots the ball in. She's really somebody who has bounced back from the ACL tear a lot.
I was going to say, she's one that has found her form, and the commentators were saying that Beth Mead is the most natural goal scorer that England have on their roster, and I could not agree more. And it was so nice to see her back on the field with England. It's such an element that they were missing.
It was also a worry. I mean, Beth Mead is our most natural goal scorer, but you want Alessia Russo to be your most natural goal scorer.
I would agree, but like you said, Russo was really creating a lot of opportunities. And if she needs to, kind of like Sophia Smith did, pull back and dump the ball off into space further down the field, that's fine. She's still creating chances, even if she's not the one putting it in the back of the net.
Yeah, I did think she had a good game, but I think she's not an Ellen White. She's not prolific.
Yeah.
And we do miss that from time to time, especially in games like this where we just need somebody to come up with a goal or a spark, even if it's just a cross into the box and it's a header. The only person who I feel confident who's going to score a header is Lucy Bronze at the moment, because I know that's what she does. She scores headers. So, but Hemp is a threat, and I love how she plays, and I love how she's been playing this season for Manchester City. And since coming off the World Cup, she's been on fire. And then we saw, England grew into the game massively after the goal. We figured it out. We were then able to string passes together. And it was like, okay, well, here we go. We can go on the front foot, get another goal, and sort of bury this game. And set pieces were a problem for both teams. Both teams had trouble dealing with set pieces. And the France goal was just, I'm going to say it was a defender who kind of just swung at the ball from a corner and scored, but it was a great goal. It really was a fantastic finish, and Alameda scored, the right back for France, and I don't think she'll score a better goal in her life.
It was stunning. It was stunning. Nobody's gonna as a shot. Nobody's gonna stop that shot. It was gorgeous. Both of the goals England conceded, in my opinion, were because of poor clearances that led to set pieces. And France capitalized, and it was just something. It was defending and lack of clearance and that's something England can work on, absolutely. But that was the downfall. And we're not used to seeing defense right now be the downfall for England. I do kind of want to quickly come back to what you said about Walsh, because I think, defense aside, I think if there's a looming hole that England clearly need to figure out, it's the fact that other teams know that if you put a body on Kira Walsh and you stop the ball from going to Kira Walsh, England are going to have a hard time creating their attack, because now they can't go through Kira Walsh. And I haven't seen them able to figure out how to get the ball to Kira Walsh. She's relatively ineffective in an England shirt right now, because other teams' main priority is to shut her down, and rightfully so. So how do you figure that out? How do you get that in? That's, to me, if they solve that, it'll be fine.
Well, so when we look at Kira Walsh when she plays for Barcelona, she's surrounded by
Right. You can't exactly just bring in Bon Mati.
right, surrounded by those other players who can do the job equally or even better than she can. So she's not man marked. It's like, yeah, well, we're going to mark Bon Mati, or we're going to mark Patry, or we're going to mark whoever it is, Mariona Caldente, whoever's in the middle. It's going to be, it's floating around. So Walsh isn't just a central cog for them. She's important, don't get me wrong, she's not the main focus. Whereas for England, it feels like they don't trust anybody else to play a through ball, which is kind of sad, because on the bench you have got Grace Clinton, who's had a great season. So why not let her go in there and try and thread some balls through and make something happen? I mean, I'm not saying Kira Walsh is our best passer of the ball by a country mile, but also Leah Williamson can play centre mid too. So why not put Jess Carter into a centre back role where she's way more comfortable? To be honest, the worst part of this game was Jess Carter at left back. I like Jess Carter. I think she's a good player, but
that was the back that you didn't want to name with the poor clearance.
Yeah, she didn't have a good game. And England's biggest problem is the left back. It is the biggest problem, because you have on one side you have Lucy Bronze, a world-class right back who's been doing it for 10, 15 years at the highest level now. And on the left side you have a bits and bobs player who's either a centre back or a striker, and the commentators were saying, well, bring on Alex Greenwood. Alex Greenwood is not the answer to left back either. Alex Greenwood is a centre back. So you could even play Alex Greenwood at centre back, who's been playing fantastic for England and for Manchester City. So Leah Williamson could be the solution to the centre mid problem also. And I want to see a little bit of flexibility from Sarina in that aspect by trying some new people in there. I love Stanway, so why not put someone else in there? Why not give Tooney a rest? I don't think that Tooney's like...
I agree. I was about to say...
Got to change it, make it fresher. Teams are reading what we're doing, so why not give them something to think about by putting Williamson in there, or by putting Clinton in there and changing it?
Or dare I say, even putting LJ in instead of Ella Toone at the number 10 and let Lauren James wreak some havoc in the midfield. Obviously, we know LJ's hurt. She's not in the squad right now. We're not going to see that versus France. But in the longer run, I'd love to see that.
We definitely missed Lauren James, because she brings incisiveness, like we just talked about with Roosevelt. She brings that incisiveness. I think in terms of, like, we've seen Roosevelt on the world stage do it, and I think that now we're going to see Lauren James do it as well. And I think perhaps Lauren James could be even better, because she's naturally gifted on both feet and can score from literally anywhere. And we did miss that. We missed her being able to sort of like penetrate through with the football at our feet versus passing. You have to have that blend. When we don't have her, we're a little bit predictable. Saying that, like I said at the beginning, we did play well. I thought we were decent. I don't think it was, when I say decent, I mean an English standard decent. We say it's good, because Americans use decent.
It's a compliment for the English.
Yeah. You say decent is not a compliment, but in England, decent is a compliment. And so it wasn't. It would have been fair if this was a draw. I would say it would have been a fair. And the France goals came out of nothing, poor defensively, and the second goal was particularly upsetting in the way that England dealt with it and didn't clear it, and had numerous opportunities to get it out.
Numerous poor clearances.
We just gave them, too many opportunities to create a chance, and then the finish from Cadoto was fantastic on the volley.
Yeah, both goals, both shots for France were absolutely stunning. You say you're not worried about England, but we really do have to take a look at this qualifying picture, because all I keep hearing from the English is that they're not worried. And I do need to know, at what point will you worry? Because we're talking about Euros 2025 qualifying, and we've talked about how this works, because England are in League A, that even if you don't qualify through this round, you will go into a playoff where you will play teams that are just quite objectively significantly worse and probably qualify through that. So I understand on that level. However, leaving it to that really doesn't sound good to me. And you look at the group that England are in right now: France, Sweden, Ireland, and England. And let's just say that, because we don't know the result of the second game right now, everybody's played 3 games. England won 1 against Ireland, tied Sweden, lost to France. Let me just paint this little picture. If they lose again to France, And then Sweden beat Ireland again because they beat Ireland in the first game. They'll play them again a second time in this international break. Suddenly, if England want to qualify and not go to the playoff, it's all going to come down to having to beat Sweden on that final game of this group. And that's not a great situation to be in either. Really, at what point do you start to worry, especially because I know this was a strong performance, but since the World Cup, England has not looked like a team that made the World Cup final whatsoever, really. They've looked disjointed, even despite getting Williamson back, getting Mead back. It's looked, instead of like a team that came in second and then got two of their best players back, it's looked disjointed. At what point do you worry?
Well, I think it's naturally going to look disjointed because the players that you're bringing back in have been injured. So, like, I think that's going to take some time to iron itself out. I'll worry if England don't qualify, and I don't think they will qualify. They'll qualify. The qualifying system is like, it's designed to give more competition to the top teams and also designed for the lesser teams to have an opportunity to go to the Euros and play in groups that suit their standard. We don't want to go to Moldova and win 10-0 or Macedonia or whatever it is. Like, that's no good for England and no good for the other team. It doesn't make any sense. So these fixtures make more sense. And to be honest, I'd rather play a France, a Sweden, an Ireland now, iron it out, figure out what the issues are, then play them in an international tournament and be surprised because we battered Scotland 6-0, but gone to a tournament and not figured out, oh, we're going to play against the US and France and Canada and Germany and all of these stronger teams. To me, it makes sense to do it this way. And I mean, some England fans may disagree and they may just want the traditional qualifying back. But I think this is just better for the game and more entertaining. People want to watch England versus France. They don't want to watch England versus Lithuania. This is not fun. So I would be concerned if England, I still think England will qualify automatically out of the group. I have faith in Serena, and there's no reason why I shouldn't have faith in Serena and what she's done. And when we look at the World Cup as well, England didn't play that great in a lot of the games, so they didn't. And
no,
we'll be
honest,
honest,
you can't really look at any World Cup and pick a team that won and say they played great in every game. That's just not how it works. There's always games that you're not going to play well. Yeah, you got to get lucky to win a World Cup.
There was a lot of criticism for England, and some of it was right, but also tournament football's hard. So
yeah,
there has to be a little bit of give and take, and it's easy for everyone at home to sit there and be like, well, you should have done this and you should have done that. But she got us to a World Cup final, and we've won a European Championship. So I trust Serena, and she'll figure it out. She's got new players that she has to work into the system, and sometimes you have to say goodbye to the players who are no longer should be in the system. Somebody like a Fran Kirby, for example, who barely played a lot of time for Chelsea this season. It may be time for Aggie Beeper-Jones. You know, there's a lot of things that she has to work out. And what's good about this is, yes, it's a qualifying system, but even if you do get it wrong, you've got sort of like a second opportunity to get it right and get into the tournament. So I think that the disappointing thing for me was the way the Olympic qualifiers went more so than this, because of the way we left it to the last minute and then had to really, try and pull it out of the bag, and we didn't manage to, even though it was a good effort. That's
what scares me about this for you guys. And perhaps my red flags are just raised because that was what I was saying in the entire lead up in the beginning of the Vladko era, where it's like, this needs to be done. It's not cause concern just because of some losses. So we'll see. I agree with everything you said. I really do. But I suppose just because of how England have been since the World Cup, I would have concern for my team just because I feel like it's been so inconsistent and you can't really even see an arc of working something out. Oh, this wasn't working. Now it's working. I can't even see that for England. There's been a lot of poor games, and this was a good one. That's what I can see.
I think comparing Vlatko Andonovski to Serena Weigmann...
I'm not comparing Vlatko and Serena. Let me get that very clear.
I know, but when I felt Vlatko came in, it was like, okay, well, Vlatko won nothing, and Serena won a European Championship with two nations and has got to two World Cup finals with two separate nations. So I think that there's going to be peaks and troughs, and it's okay. Like, we can't panic That's not what we should be doing.
I agree.
Let's trust the process, trust what she's doing. And if, it comes to a point where it's like, okay, well, this is really not working anymore. Why isn't it working? Figure it out. Because there are not many world-class coaches in the world, and she is one of them. So we're not letting her go anywhere at this point.
To be totally clear, I am not suggesting that. She is a world-class coach. I do agree with a lot of, if not everything you said. I guess I'm just, at some point, if you don't hit a peak at some point in the next year or so, there will need to be questions raised. And that's very preemptive. I understand that, but that's just really within the lines of like, okay, when do the alarm bells start off? And it sounds like for you, it's if we don't make the Euros.
Well, I think, first of all, when do we want to hit the peak? At the Euros, when we get there. That's the ideal time. You have to qualify though, but we don't have to be peak. We have to win games. We don't have to be peak yet. And I think that also, we touched upon this earlier, the players are exhausted.
Yeah, I was watching Lucy Bronze on that screen, and I was like, she has had quite a past couple of weeks.
Yeah, she hasn't even had time to be like, I just won the Champions League. I just won all the trophies with Barcelona. Hold on, no, you have to now go play for England. And it's very similar for the men's team too. They've had to do the same thing. Granted, they've got a European Championship starting in 2 weeks. But it's phenomenal, like, what we're expecting of these players at times. And we have to give the players a break.
I agree. We'll finish this just by me asking you, Amy, any final words on England right now?
Well, I'm hoping that, obviously, by the time this airs, that England have got some sort of result in France. I think they've learned a lot from what they've seen from the French and how they play, and some tactical, just some tactical tweaks. And I'm really hoping that Jess Carr doesn't play left back. We can figure out this left back problem. I don't know if Niamh Charles is injured, but that would be the natural replacement for me. I know the French are pacey, so maybe that's why Carter was in there instead, but she got outpaced as well by Cascarino. So the key for England is not to concede the first goal, and you make it really hard for yourself. So if they can get their footing in, the French crowd will obviously will play a big part. If they can get their footing in, keep them quiet for a little while, settle down. We seem to play well on the counter-attack, so the French can come at us, then we can go, and that will enable Walsh to get more into the game, I would say.
All right, and on that note, the final couple of games of Euros qualifying for this round in these groups, July 12th and July 16th, which is obviously the next international window. And that is it for us here at the Women's Soccer Show. I've been Sarah.
I've been Amy.
Thanks, everybody.
This podcast was edited by Monkey Hill Media. Visit monkeyhillmedia.com for more information.